So the first few months of 2025, not the best for new movies, but April's starting to turn that around. Let's talk about Sinners. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies and TV way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comment section. What did you think about Sinners, and what was your excitement level going into the film? Now, this was one of my most anticipated films of the year, simply on the basis of it being a Ryan Coogler original film. There was a period piece, supposedly vampire movie. I just heard that and I was like, all right, I'm in. I only watched the first teaser for it. I didn't watch any of the other trailers. So I went in with as little knowledge as I could outside of the one sentence synopsis of the film. And then by the time I was going into the theater, it already had, I think it had had 100% on Rotten Tomatoes for about a week. It had dipped down to just 99%. So my expectations were sky high, hoping it could live up to the hype. With all that said, let's get started with the good. And I'm very happy to say that for me, this movie absolutely lived up to the hype, and it was a movie that absolutely belonged on my most anticipated movies of the year list. You know, of course, it's a period piece zombie movie, but if you just describe it that way, you miss so much of what this movie actually is, because it's a Prohibition era kind of underground crime film set in the South that's a celebration of music and the blues and bluesgrass, as well as a vampire movie with all sorts of racial subtext mixed into it without ever being preachy, but always being very prominent in the context of the film that you're watching. And it blends all of that together seamlessly, where it doesn't feel like we're hopping between genres. It doesn't feel like the tone keeps shifting around. It's a movie that manages to tackle a lot. It's very ambitious, but it does it seamlessly. It takes a number of familiar pieces and blends them together into something that is wholly new. It's a film that is borderline a musical. Now, in the traditional sense, a musical is a film in which at certain points in time people break into song, breaking the reality that they're in where everyone is singing. It's not that type of musical, but it's a film filled with musical numbers where the characters in the film are musicians and they pause to sing songs. Both because we're going to a club where a band plays, and before that they're trying out, but even stuff that happens later in the film that is not tied to all of that. Music is just saturates the entire movie in a way that, for me, was not obvious from the teaser trailer that I saw that it would be in there. And once again, it's a blend that I have not seen in this type of movie ever before. Now, if you follow my channel, in particular my second channel, Sean Chandler Plus, you know that I've had a lot of frustrations with Hollywood leaning so much into franchises and IP and not creating new stories that are given a budget. There are always new original movies coming out, but they're low-budget films. There's not nearly as many mid- and high-budget films, in particular allowing these premium directors to kind of run with a very large budget to tell something new and original. That's something I've talked about quite a bit on my channel. As much as I love franchises, and my channel grew because I was ranking franchises, all those franchises came from somewhere. At one point in time, Hollywood took a chance on someone with a new original story that led to the franchises of today. And Sinners is an example of exactly why I've been saying that and exactly what I want. This is Warner Brothers doing the thing that many of us have said. Don't just take these great directors and give them a bunch of money if they want to do a franchise film and then give them, your spare change to make their originals. Trust them to make films like this. It's a genre film. It's very accessible, whether through the music, whether through the action, through the movie stars. But also, it's like a prestige version of a vampire Batman movie. Prestige version of a vampire movie, where it has so much more to it to offer than just people battling vampires. Because you trusted Ryan Coogler, one of the top directors of our time, that he has very accessible sentimentalities. Like he knows, or not sentiment, like he has very accessible tastes. He makes movies that mainstream audiences like, but he's also a thoughtful person that can incorporate ideas and themes that are relevant and important into an accessible story. And you trusted him to do that with a genre film, and he did a great job of it. Today's video is brought to you by Factor. Make this your best season yet with nutritious 2-minute meals from Factor. Eating well has never been this easy. Just heat up and enjoy, giving you more time to do what you want. It's the busy season for me. I'm traveling quite a bit. My kids have so many activities going on, and Factor makes it easier to just go out and live my life and not spend all my time in the kitchen cooking and cleaning. Factor meals arrive fresh and ready to eat. Perfect for any active lifestyle. Just got back from the gym. We've got queso fundido and ground beef and cauliflower rice, all with over 40 grams of protein. With 45 weekly menu options, you can pick gourmet meals that fit your goals. Choose from Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, Keto, and more. I usually go Protein Plus or Keto because I'm a high protein, low carb kind of guy. Factor powers your day with satisfying breakfasts, on-the-go lunches, premium dinners, and guilt-free snacks and desserts. I like to kick off my day with their protein shakes, once again, because I'm a high protein kind of guy. Get started at factormeals.com/Sean Chandler 50 off and use code Sean Chandler 50 off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. That's code Sean Chandler 50 off at factormeals.com/Sean Chandler 50 off for 50% off plus free shipping. Let's kind of unpack the pieces here. So right off the bat, we'll talk kind of about our main cast in here. You've got Michael B. Jordan in dual roles as twins, Smoke and Stack. Like, it might be the best Michael B. Jordan we've gotten, somewhat because we've got two of them, but it's like a role that he gets to have the movie star swagger that he brings. He also gets, of course, to do the action and the physicality that we know that he can pull off. But it also constantly pauses to have these little character moments. Like, everyone in the movie has this rich connection to other people. And so it'll pause to allow to have these very vulnerable moments of loss, of heartbreak, of longing, of hurting the people you love the most in an effort to protect them. And so it just pauses to have, like, do all of that. And so much of that is on, most of these conversations are with his character, one of his two characters, and the people around him in this community. Then you have Haley Steinfeld that just continues to be another one of the top talents of her generation. Like, I still, in my mind, like, she made such a mark in True Grit 15 years ago when she was 12, 13 years old as just a little kid. Where she's in a Coen Brothers movie acting against these top actors of past generations and holding her own, where you go, oh, whoever this Haley Steinfeld is, I'm guessing she's going to be around for a while because she's really good. Obviously that has happened, but it still throws me off to see her in roles where she's very mature and grown up, and her character in this is a very sexual character. And so, you know, sometimes when you're introduced to someone that makes such a mark as a kid, it's a little weird when, even, like, obviously she's been a grown-up for almost a decade now, but it's still a little bit strange when they're so grown-up and sexual in the character, but, like, she's very good in the role. And once again, just, you're talking about top talents from their generations working with a top director and given great material, given a lot to work with to have fun characters, where she plays this person whose heart's been broken, who's still in love, that is kind of placed in this a very complicated context of that she's at this big, gigantic party, whatever you would call it, and she's the only white person in the room, and playing that dynamic. And then the vampire stuff starts to happen, and so her character has to fit into all these different contexts and even relates to characters in multiple very different ways, and you buy into all of it. Another one that just stood out to me was Delroy Lindo. He's always fantastic. No real surprise there, but just once again, it's like one of those, like, when you have a movie where just like the supporting roles, like the eighth build guy in the movie, and he just pops through, he cuts through, and he's so good. And there's such like a richness to every interaction that he has with other people, and can find little bits of humor in moments that you wouldn't expect to find humor. And I touched on this earlier, but the movie is borderline a musical, and it's soaked with great music. And so much of it is kind of classic 1930s blues and bluesgrass. But the film does a number of things where it like there's a sequence in the middle of this film with Preacher Boy, the cousin of the twins, who's a musician that ends up playing at this event. And they do something when he does his big performance that absolutely should not work. It's pretty like wild how far it goes into this, where it goes with it, and starting to like visualize the themes of what the movie's exploring about the power of music. But it works, and it takes very traditional blues music and starts incorporating in all of these music of across time, even traditional music to modern day music, and incorporates it into this blues that creates something just very interesting. And the whole film is just brought to life with its use of music and sound, traditional, modern, all interwoven into one, with so much of what the movie's kind of playing around with its ideas. And so like that's the piece to it that you can get lost in it's a Ryan Coogler movie, it's a vampire movie. But it's also a celebration of music. It's so overtly, that's what the movie is trying to do. And then we kind of move on to our vampires. What it does with them is it uses vampires as kind of the, a metaphor for temptation. And even with the way the movie plays out in its final bits of, say that we'll talk about this in a little second, but there's a mid-credit sequence is very important. The way that even it plays out its vampire mythos and uses it as this context for temptation, it makes it so that temptation is like a real thing, that it should be tempting. It should be like there's something in a temptation that is good and desirable. That doesn't mean there's not also something bad in it as well. As you start battling the vampires and everything that's happening, it tickles your brain just a little bit, even with the treatment of the vampires and what they have to offer to people. And it's not an action movie. Don't go in expecting nonstop action. It's not overall a slow burn, but in terms of the vampire action horror side to it, it is a slow burn, to where, I don't know, about a third of the way through the movie, you start being introduced into the vampire side of things. And it's just kind of, it's there, but it's kind of teased at the beginning, and it's kind of lingering in the background as you see the sun setting. And then it's subtly introduced into this big party event that they're hosting, and keeps building that tension of the danger of it. And it doesn't explode into full-blown action, everything, until very late into the film. So you can't go in expecting nonstop. If you want a rock and roll action vampire movie, that is not what this is. It has the big payoff. You get that. You have the showdown. But it is very much, we're building the tension for a long time to get to that explosion of payoff. Just know that going into it. But when it happens, both the way that it builds tension and introduces the vampires, you're like, oh, okay, I see where we're heading with this. And then when you start seeing how it's playing out, and don't, like the classic horror movies, don't go outside, but for reasons very different from what they would be thinking. You're like, don't go outside. Like, we know something you don't know. And the audience's knowledge works to build that tension and the danger of the cost of what's coming with some of this stuff. And then when you get the big showdown, like plenty of cool spectacle, action, vampire, the right amount of gore that's not super off-putting, but certainly if you like some gore, you get some gore in there. So much of it, when you look at the way, what Ryan Coogler did here, where he wants to do a vampire movie, but he wants to do it in a way that's elevated, it offers more than just vampire carnage. And so it's touching on all these ideas while having vampire action, while doing things that are artistically bold and dangerous that could have like shipwrecked the movie and getting just too weird and strange, or brilliant things that don't fit, or incorporating modern things into it in a place that would just snap the movie. And it worked. Like Ryan Coogler pulled it off. He swung for the fences with a genre film, and he knocked it out of the park. There's a few more things to talk about, so let's move on to the mixed aspects of the film. These aren't necessarily good or bad, just things to know going into the film. And right off the bat, one of the things is what I just mentioned. You have to go into it knowing it is not an all-out action movie or all-out horror film. It is a blend of all these different genres. And while vampires are introduced kind of late first act, it's a pretty long movie, so it's late first act. That is still pretty early in the movie, and so it's in there, and there's a little bit of that. But the vampire carnage and destruction is really the third act of the film. It has a lot of tension building in the middle. Just know that going in, that you're going for this holistic film that does a lot of different stuff. It's not a movie that just delivers carnage, and if that's all you want, this isn't going to be the movie that you're looking for. You're going for this elevated experience in film. Also, with movies like this, people frequently ask, is there a mid or post-credit scene? Yes and yes. There is a mid-credit scene that is must-watch, that it is an epilogue to the film. At my screening, 60-70% of the audience walked out before it started. And the whole time, I'm like, oh no! Like, I knew there was going to be, I was like, please don't leave. I'm not going to yell, please stay. And then the scene was so much even richer than I realized it would be. Where the credits, the movie ends, and it kind of just flashes something to hint at where things kind of go. And then something plays over the credits. It's kind of a teaser of an epilogue. And then the mid-credit scene is a full-blown epilogue. That it is important to closing out the character arcs of the film, the themes of the film. It is one of, if ever there was like a must-watch mid-credit scene that's not a teaser for something else, that's a like, let's close things off, it's this. Like, it is that good, it is that important. And the movie, like the story you are watching ends at the credits. This is a true epilogue of, so what happened? That sort of thing. So you have to stay for it. And then there's a post-credit scene that is just a fun little nugget that ties into the music side of things. It's just like another musical number. And so, if you like to stick around, if you don't have anywhere to go, you stick around and you go, oh, that was kind of nice. But like if you're desperate and need to pee, I'm sorry, you got to hold it through the mid-credit scene. You just have to. You don't need to suffer to see the last little bit of the post-credit. From there, let's move on to the bad. And to be perfectly clear, everything I'm going to say here is essentially a nitpick. Like, these aren't things that broke the experience for me. They're just like, this is something like, I would have done that a little differently. I would have calibrated that a little bit differently. That's all it is. And it all kind of goes into the same idea of kind of maybe the pacing of the film, or structurally how it's done, where it is this long build-up to a big explosive finale. I probably would have had a little bit more action earlier in the film. Find some way to add something. That's just the way that I'm wired. If you're going to have that thrilling and exciting of a finale, I watch it and go, oh, that was so cool. Oh, that's it? Like, that's kind of the way that I respond when you deliver in that sort of fashion. I go, I wish we could have had a little bit more of that earlier in the film. Some of that in some fashion. Do something a little bit more than having all of it so backloaded. And when you do it that way, it makes for a film that it's kind of, I don't know if pacing is the right word for it, but like the flow of what you get can be a little bit peculiar, because it's like the first act, it's kind of all fun banter dialogue between characters and backstory. And the middle act is a lot of music. And the third act is a lot of violence. And it feels like each act delivers something very different. And you kind of wish that, is there a way to is that what's great about the movie, or is it would have been nice to blend all of that a little bit better in some sense? But that was the big thing that kind of stuck out to me. As I was watching it, I did have some kind of, when the credits started rolling, I was like, it's a little bit underwhelming that they didn't resolve this or this a little bit better. The epilogue did. And I think that's, you could say that perhaps the way the main story is structured, it's a little bit designed to make the mid-credit scene better, and it makes the main flow a little bit odd. Like you feel like I missed a bit there. Like I feel like we should have resolved that a little bit clearer, and the mid-credit scene does. But it's a, you know, that's a nitpick. That's like, you know, that's kind of a weird calibration of how to do that. But like, really, that's like it. Just a little bit of a flow. I would have liked a little bit more action. The performances, the world, the originality, the blend of genres, the vibe, the way it made you feel, how satisfying the last 15, 20 minutes was. It's like, this is why I love going to the movies. Like, this is what I want more of. This is when I've been whining and complaining about not enough original movies given a budget, not enough trusting these great filmmakers to try something. This is what I'm talking about. This is what I want more of. Let's do it. Please support it in the theater so we get more of these. Absolutely recommend this film. I'd say right now, this is my pick for the best movie of the year thus far. Overall, it's an A on the entertainment scale, a 9 out of 10, and we'll say that this is a must-watch movie. Please go see it in the theater. Send Hollywood a message. We want more of this, more originality, more trusting directors, and stuff like this. It's like, even if we're gonna do originality, original genre films like this, absolutely, I love it. So please support this film and keep talking movies and TV